practice a little together, and then we'll explore something. And these Sangha gatherings are really special for me because I get to see you, and we all have this closer relationship or connection, and it's just neat to share with each other and learn from each other. And sense of Sangha is so important. So yeah, maybe I will begin with my little online ritual of really seeing all of you as the Buddha's forms of awakenment, and also making an offering. So you're kind of my shrine. Well, maybe each of us is each other's. And also I have, on my shrine, I have another one of these. This is, maybe this is like our Sangha's ritual implement of choice, in case you would like one. I look at it a lot. It really does inspire me. It's like, it is like a teacher of some kind to contemplate. So we can begin, and I think we'll just do this sequence that I've been starting our practice with a lot, which is the 10 fingers meditation and the 5 senses meditation. And these are kind of under the umbrella of this, the first gesture in these series of gestures that I've been offering and sharing. And we'll be doing another intro sort of day of the first 7. And there's 21 in total, but like they symbolize it, just symbols and ways of connecting with the path. And so the first gesture is this big motion with the hands of turning the wheel of Dharma, like opening your practice, sort of like a Tai Chi gesture too, and then lifting the hands up and down on the thighs. And I think talking with Janet, in some ways this first gesture really feels like you're opening your session, you're opening your connection to Dharma, but then you're also, it's kind of like the earth touching mudra or gesture, which is, the Buddha touched the earth in front of the Buddha to say, that's how I know. When Mara said, how do you know you've experienced anything real? And so the sanity of that. But here it's almost like you're touching yourself because you're the earth, as well. So it's, I think maybe it's that way, all partly too, or the way I'm emphasizing that, just because many of us don't always feel like we're part of nature. We might feel like we're on top of the world rather than of the world. So anyway, that's some of the intent behind it. Usually this first gesture would just be actually an honesty practice of just dropping your meditation, not doing anything, not practicing in particular. And the reason for that is, in order to really start practicing properly, we have to start with total honesty. And it's, and total honesty in this case is like you have a meditation technique, and now therefore you can drop it and see what it is you try to do when you're just gonna be. What is it comes up that what little ways do we try to get false sense of control, or run a program or a habit, a meditation, a positive, try to get back to a meditation experience. So this is a funny way of throwing up this beautiful mirror of, oh, I actually don't need to do that. Now, obviously, we don't have to follow distraction either. That's not the instruction. That would be the meditation on following thoughts. And I think we all know how to do that. And we don't need to practice it. It's just the sort of samsaric conditioning. So here, you could say it's beginning at the end, or just beginning with nothing, no instruction, total honesty, just being. And of course, that's whatever comes up in that mirror is what you need. In other words, wherever we are is what we work with. So it's not very different, right? It's a non-linear. This also, these gestures are in a circle, right? And the whole path is laid out as a circle. So from the beginning, there's not like, oh, when I get my next thing, then I'll, next piece of candy or something, which is kind of nice. I like, getting a treat or, fresh baked cookies or something. But then you eat too many and you don't feel good, or you want more and you shouldn't. And you're like, oh, I'm kind of greasy and chocolate on my, oh, there's chocolate on you. Oh, yeah. You can't eat anymore. It doesn't feel good anymore. That's what they say samsara is all about, right? So we can't quite, can we just be, not that we don't have cookies, because, you got to have cookies. But the point is, if you want them, but the point is that can we also just be with enough cookie, or I want more cookie, or I feel bad cookie, just be with whatever. And that's really the practice, right? Many people nowadays hear about mindfulness. They get all excited about, oh, I'm going to become a better person. And I think for all of us here, having meditated for a number of years, we know it doesn't really work like that. So, so the first gesture, this sense of honesty, just being. However, in order to graduate to that, or to relax into that more fully, or however we look at it, whether it's coming up or going down the mountain, all are good, equally good. We start with this 10 fingers shamatha as a way of connecting, and then we move into the 5 senses as more of an awareness practice. And then when we complete those two, we kind of have arrived in the land of the first gesture, you could say, and that's the intent of it. So it's like scaffolding within each gesture. There's tons of practices that would fall under that umbrella. Again, these gestures are reminders, or ways of signaling through our body experiences, non-conceptual practice experiences. So that's the skillful means. So we'll begin. 10 fingers meditation is, you don't have to obviously do whatever you want, but if it's helpful, it's a meditation I find very deceivingly potent, because when you breathe in at the top of the in-breath, you gently press with your pinky, moving successively at the top of each in-breath to the next finger, going left to right, and you can come back. And really what's neat is when you get to the end of the out-breath and you don't rush it, you just let it go out and you don't come in, let it come in. And so there's really these beautiful moments at either end of the breath where, when at the top of the breath, you press down with gentleness. If you find yourself sort of pressing like you'd press a phone, like next, swiping, or it's biofeedback, right? Which is like a buzzword but really it's actually just that built-in, oh, am I being tender? How does that feel when I touch myself that way? What feeling do I have while I'm touching? Am I really remembering to touch with love? One could even amp it up and say love for the teachings, love, devotion towards their goodness. So anyway, that's one touch point. And then we just let the breath go out. We let go. And at the end of the out breath, there is what we call this gap. Even Deepak Chopra talks about the gap, right? This very popular thing. It's a nervous system relaxing. And the cool thing about it is when you really don't ride the breath in, but in, it comes in when it wants to. And I really just can't stress how unique that feels, different than when we are riding the breath a little. Also, we're not counting with numbers, we're counting procedurally with some somatic time. And so we're not engaging the conceptual mind more. So we begin by breathing in, breathing out, one full inhalation, exhalation. We'll breathe in, and at the top of the in-breath, we press down gently with the left finger, the pinky finger, and breathe out. Rest in the gap, and when the breath wants to come in on its own, it will. And we go from left to right then. Now we can move into the five senses awareness meditation. Each of your senses is a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or deity or a Drala. And in other words, with varying degrees of realizing our true nature, all these honorific terms really are. But can we see that the senses are actually our family, our teachers, our connection to everything? So we begin with sight, just noticing the bare awareness of shapes and colors. Whenever the labeling process of the sixth consciousness comes, we just notice it, but return our attention to the sense. Moving to sounds. And then moving to smells, which can be subtler at times, but there's always something there, even a very faint or almost no smell, somehow you can connect with that. It's there. We're softening our senses, becoming subtilized, more attentive to them. Then taste, whatever is going on, taste. And then touch. Body, temperature, weight. And now stacking body, taste, touch, taste, smell, relaxing into or surrendering to the shining of the presence of the senses. Touch, taste, smell, sound. Touch, taste, smell, sound, sight. Now we're practicing allowing the equality or equity of the senses. They may not be exactly equal in size or dominance within our subjectivity, but we're not evaluating them. We're allowing an indeterminacy to the mind because we're not using that mind that evaluates and judges here. We're seeing those processes in the context of the senses. We're not measuring which one's bigger or smaller. We're just letting them shine. They are all like different people, our family, or our sangha, our inner sangha, or letting them be present. Noticing the thoughts as like clouds or weather in the sky of the senses. Initially, it might feel like de-emphasizing thought, but actually we're not. We're just letting it be, have its equity, but not exaggerating it as we often do in our human-centric perception. So here we're kind of inviting a little more of our nature and the nature that we're in. And now, sort of arriving in this quality of just being Just being in the larger space of this shared reality with each other, all our senses. Now just dropping any technique whatsoever. We're not following distraction. We're not trying to do anything. We're not blocking the senses. We're just realizing they're always there, right? We're not looking for them. We're not hunting anything down. We're not chasing any mouses of thoughts. We're just letting things be right where they are, right how they are. Seeing evaluation as just as it is evaluation, just appearing in this bigger awareness, not biting that hook. In Tibetan, they refer to this as nakedness. And it refers to the idea that there's no extra, no veil. There's a kuntak, a labeling of phenomena that is general to the sixth consciousness. And here, we're just sort of relinquishing the magnetism and the unconscious sort of sucking into and eclipsing and exaggerating thought. We're just noticing that subtle, and it's this is why the senses are our teachers too and are so kind, right? Because they literally won't fall for that. They help us see eclipsing into exaggerating thought. We think we're paying attention to a thought, but we're actually often making it bigger and dimming the rest of the senses. This is what I mean by honesty too, right? This quality of just not altering. It's not really meditation. There's nothing to accomplish or do per se, but we aren't following and eclipsing into thought. And now we'll just notice how everything has changed from when we started. When we began our call, it was one moment, and now time has passed, life invisible, time not so real, but yet a relative sense of reference points from one moment to another. There has been change in the sense of the relationships of causes and conditions. And that kind of acknowledging the impermanence or the changeability of so powerful. And out of that, what are we committing to? What is it that we kind of, why are we here tonight? Why do we come together? Why do we practice right now? Why are we practicing today? Why are we practicing in this moment? And this comes out of, do you see how we stacked again? We stacked utter honesty, the acknowledgement of, regardless of whatever ideology or perspective or conditioning we notice ourselves kind of gravitating towards, we still are observing the changeability and the passing quality of the temporality of our life. And then out of that, what are we going to do? What do we like to do? How would we like to arise? What is our motivation or inspiration or aspiration? Usually that has three parts, which we can teach about in more detail another time. But one part is a container of what is our existing set of vows, or what have we already kind of committed to in our life, what's happening right now, and then how do we see the challenge of that, how do we lean into that, or what's our growing edge, and then we offer that kind of taking of refuge is what I call like congruency. It's different than lip service. It's the opposite of lip. Nothing wrong, by the way, with chanting, a formula or saying things and reminds us. We say it 3 times, sometimes those formulas on purpose, because the teachers knew that we're just so thick with that stuff. They just kind of like keep saying it over and over and over, just in case it gets through somehow, maybe, or at least it gets in our discursive thinking. But here I have a slightly different approach, which is that's good. That's fine if you want to do that. I applaud that. I've done that for decades. But I also feel like really coming into like okay, using my own words in this moment, using my own knowledge of my own path, my own life. What am I doing and why? So if you'd like to share that and model your practice to the rest of the Sangha and say, hey, I'll try, by all means. Again, all we're doing is just sharing our aspiration of why we're practicing right now, or what's up for us. You could say, what's your challenge, or what's your excitement, what's your inspiration, it's also a great starter of like, if you want to discuss a particular set of teachings with me or with anyone else here or all together, however, this is a good way of honing in on something real, right? It's very, sometimes one last thing I'll say is sometimes people find this almost confrontational. Like, it's like, oh shit, like what you want me to talk now with my own word? Like, oh, and so okay. And it's like, wait, but I thought I could just read the thing and we'll all just hear a thing and I can consume the Dharma. And it's like, nope. So maybe it isn't meant to be confrontational per se, but it's definitely a confrontation with your own experience. And wait, what do I? And I'm surprised sometimes. I'll have to sit there and go, I don't even know. And then I'll go, oh, that. So bling. And that means it's coming from something genuine. It's insight. It's not coming from rote. I'm here because I'm nobody talks like that. All right. Anyway, if anyone would like to share their aspiration, you are more than welcome. You're invited. And or it could come up, as I said, also in the form of a challenge for your practice or something you want to explore.
I'm committing to being present.
I can't hear you.
I'm committing to being present and in my body. And to the realness that allows.
And may I ask you what the growing edge there is, or what the challenge is there, or what you're noticing is like, as you lean into that, when is that easy and when is that hard?
Those moments which are more frequent than I'd like to admit, where I feel like I have to be doing something. I have to take action of some kind.
Now that I know there's a potential to be questioned, I'm a little more reluctant to share, but I'm going to anyway. Um, I very much am taking refuge in this moment and this Sangha and this wisdom that's arising through it, rather than all of the other distractions that I didn't realize I was being distracted by. Yeah, it's. I'm remembering to just always come back to this.
I'm wanting to commit to being, to that encounter, to the challenge of wandering into my present condition and motivation. And the kind of flip side of that is sort of not wanting to be sort of just drawn along or kind of tricked into thinking that my sort of autopilot dharma is okay or something like that. Yeah, it seems very important somehow to make it personal, to notice what's going on for me now.
Mm.
Because I vow to respect what I want in that encounter.
In case it's helpful for anyone else, just remembering that senses as part of our gathering, that each of us is inviting our senses along with the screen and the beauty and the feelings of each other, also this wholeness of we're actually together in that too. We all have senses, so when we invite them, we're actually feeling this shared world. It's very powerful that way when you think of it that way. It's a way of connecting not just here but with everywhere together. It's been essential for me with the computer stuff, with all the screen time. It's like, wow, this has to be made more explicit. And so my little I am practicing with the 5 senses with screen time. That's like, okay, enough screen time. You are taking too much time now in my life, so now I need to relate to you properly and fully. And part of that is my practice is to really see the senses as invited fully into that experience of being with a screen. I proclaim that as something I'm committing to and practicing with.
I love this exploration of the senses connecting me to the ground that you were describing, and then that being a gateway to becoming more fully present. And I think this was probably the first time that I really got a sense of what the gap might allow, or even that the gap is there, and how that might relate to, you know, like a glimpse of coming into a present, of being fully present. So that's what I vow, my refuge is to become more fully present in the moment. And it's really exciting. I'm sure there's a lot of scary parts, but right now I'm just kind of excited.
So I'm aspiring and committing and vowing to exploring more of the uncomfortableness of opening to not only myself but other people, and not getting lost in one or the other. So just being able not only to notice but kind of open to the discomfort of not knowing. Kind of that.
First of all, let me apologize. I've been beset by technical problems. Maybe you didn't know, maybe you did. But thinking about aspiration, one of the big themes across my life that I see is a real quest for authenticity. Like, what does it mean to be a real boy, a real man, a real human being? And prior to being introduced to this path, having sort of mushy, ill-formed, but good feeling ideas about what that might be, but it was very confusing. It was very kind of slippery, and it would be here in a second and then slide off, and then I discover a sense of inauthenticity, like a sense of trying to be what I thought people wanted me to be, or act like the cool kids, or, you know, whatever, however you want to say it. And I feel like I got introduced to this path when I was becoming a yoga teacher and student in my 40s. And I feel like when I put my feet on this path, it's almost brutal in its requirement. If you're going to keep going here, it's not for the faint of heart. It will not allow you to continue to fool yourself. In my experience, you know, you just sit and do shamatha for a while, and just keep working with that consistently. And you can run from yourself, but you can't hide. And that's a thing to keep working with, and until the struggle abates. And you're like, well, you know, it's okay. It's okay to feel awkward. It's okay to be weird. It's okay to be whatever labels. All that it just is. It's just human. And then at a certain point, all that labeling and categorization is not useful anymore. And then, you know, in the moments in the few weeks that I've been involved with the Sangha and also with Baltimore Center, people are just themselves, and amazing magic happens when we stop with the, you know, putting up fronts and pretending, or even in the moments where we are pretending and someone who loves us in the Sangha says, hey, that doesn't sound like you. Mm-hmm. And you go, whoa, wow, that's amazing. That's a good insight. So authenticity is a big part of it for me, and that's always got a bleeding edge. Mm. I remember when I was more affiliated with the Christian faith, I once told God that he or God or her or whatever could have my personality. And that was a very dangerous thing to offer, especially since I think it might have been the universe that heard me, and the universe said, okay, you're gonna, here's a path for you. That's all about authenticity.
I'm finding it difficult to be disciplined in my practice. So I've been trying to find a balance in my life that I'm just not finding. So I'm committing to setting aside specific time, which is very, very difficult for me. I tend to want to do it when I want to do it. And I've been trying different things, and it's just, I'm remembering a little over a year ago when I tracked what I did with every moment of my day. And Janet, you may remember because I talked about it, but I think I need to do something like that again to get myself really settled in.
Yeah. That's powerful, you know, that hearing all of you. And I was thinking Khandro Rinpoche once said to me that, you know, if you walk 7 steps towards retreat, there's immeasurable merit, even if you don't go. So just to rouse that mind that I will Now, ideally you sincerely mean it. I suppose the merit ratio goes way down if you're like, how about I will? I'm not going. It's probably like doesn't really work. But if you really, really feel it, if you really risk just thinking and feeling it, right? Even that is so indelible on our consciousness, mind stream, whatever you want to say. And I remember Charlie Rockwell once saying, anytime you've done a retreat, plan the next one 6 months out, right as you get back from the retreat, because you'll never have time. You will never have time for retreat. So don't plan that you'll have time, just make time. Plan it and then go, shit, I said I'd do this thing and it's on my calendar, and all right, well. So it's interesting to hear that from someone, I remember talking with him once about doing the 3-year retreat, because I thought, I want to do the 3-year retreat. I also talked, at that time I was very big on that. I also talked with Mingyur Rinpoche. I was like, Mingyur Rinpoche, I want to do the 3-year retreat. I had an interview with him and a couple times, but this time I was like, I want to do that. And he was like, he looked at me and he was just like, that's nice. No, he said, that's great. Like, it was like I could have said, I had a great day yesterday. And he was like, that's great. Like, it just totally, I was like, I don't know what I was expecting, but he was not, he was fine. He was encouraged. He was like, yeah, that would be a benefit. When I pressed him, he's like, yes, this would be. But Charlie Rockwell had always said, because I asked him about it too, and he goes, he's like, forget about that. He's like, I wanted to do that. And he's like, but it's all about daily practice. I've seen people fall asleep on retreat. And they come out and they haven't even dealt with their lives in any way at all. And I was like, oh God. And actually, I happen to know, I'm hanging around too long in meditation circles, I know a number of 3-year retreatants who have gone through who are like, oh man. Like, they didn't regret it, but they're kind of like, well, I didn't do it. Well, so I don't know. I kind of ultimately have fallen to the Ashe Acharya John Rockwell school of like, it's all about daily practice. And he also said, schedule retreats. So do these retreats, schedule these times along with your regular practice. As you get into the higher teachings, you really hear a lot about contiguous or continuous practice, the notion that really everything is practice. Maybe that's the heartbreaking thing too about real, like, longer retreat, is you just start to realize, I'm just me, and like, this is just life, and now I have to work with that stuff. So, I know that Trungpa Rinpoche, in the end of his life, and Tulku Ujin, in the last years of his life, they would only do what are called house retreats, which may sound really chill, but basically they would not do any formal practice at all. They would be in a house and live. But every moment they knew what they were doing there. They were living with as much total presence as possible. So like, I think I want to go outside. Okay. I think I'm hungry, so like, to me, that's the especially the cutting edge, and His Holiness the 16th Karmapa was very clear. Rikpe Dorje, he came and saw us and he said, these people need Mahamudra. They will not do well with all the sadhanas and the like, some of them will do it. Kalu Rinpoche's students, they all had to learn Tibetan and do a 3-year retreat. That was what he said. If you wanted to study with him, he's like, okay, are you coming? We're starting a 3-year retreat in Tibet. So one of my teachers, Elizabeth Callahan, did that, and she came out pretty realized being. But that's amazing. There's that's not for everyone. I would say it was a very small group of people that could pull that off. And the ones I won't name names, but I do know people who've done those long retreats who really did not benefit. Let me just put that. It's like I feel conflicted saying, but I'm saying what they've said, and I knew them before and after, and I was like, yeah, so retreat, this is the whole teaching. Motivation is more important than anything, and inspiration, and what we just did together by sharing that, and the nakedness of it. Maybe it would be flawless practice to go, wow, I really don't know if I'm serious about this right now. Like, you know, I want to be, but I want to not be more. At least that's how it felt, blank, you know. So that, to me, though, then I'd be like, but wait a second, that's amazing, because now you have achieved the nakedness of honesty, and then ironically, that's the razor's edge of truth that is the real Dharma. So that's why you can do long retreats and not accomplish much. Boy, I have come full circle and completely contradict myself. Welcome to reality. But I do think that we all could think about, like, you know, Janet and I spent Monday together practicing. We had it overdue for a longer set time together. And our practice was very strange. It was very conversational and senses in front of the computer, but it was real. But if you do feel like you could think, okay, I'm going to take this time and practice. And even if you fail to do the practice you said you would, just then that becomes such a mirror to such a great teacher. Can we encounter that with gentleness and go, yeah, what's going on there? Yeah, why didn't Janet, you know, what were you going to share?
Oh, just that, I mean, as you know, something that came up for me out of our retreat on Monday was just this, and it feels really connected somehow. I'm not quite sure how, but I just feel like it is, to what you're talking about. Just that sense that everything that happens has the potential to be a teacher. And so there's that. Like every second potentially contains something of value if I'm open to it. But even the conversation in front of the computer, just like we're doing now, was practice because we said it was.
Mm-hmm. 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 Right, and that's why I can't, and I don't think I don't remember if it's Trungpa Rinpoche or Khenpo Tsultrim Gyaltsen Rinpoche, but someone asks them, well, you love retreat so much, why aren't you in retreat right now? And I said, the whole world is my retreat cave, you know, but like that really is the truth, right? If it is. And as an aspiration, that's really clearly my commitment and my particular path, right? And so the work I'm doing with the gestures or these things where I talk about it is, it's another way of talking about practice or enlightened society, but it's living sadhana, the idea that your entire life is the words and letters of a sadhana. It's not a liturgy chanted in the morning. By the way, though, if you have one of those, you want to get one, go do it, that's great. But what I'm talking about is different. It's saying that literally, how do we begin to animate and populate the world of our senses as gates to the Dharma? And this is why, you know, there's cultural technology in Tibet where you look at things, you look at and anthropomorphize various memes or patterns or ecosystems and give them names and bodies and shapes, because you really start to create this relational world that awakens you. It helps, it's of skillful means. And ontologically, it's hard to say, like, what's alive and what's not in the field of awareness. It's all alive. So, like, how do you work with the texture? And really, it's about how they say again and again, the teachings, it's really that we just don't appreciate them enough. That's the real obstacle. And so there's a lot of hoo-ha that went down in Tibet to try to, boy, they went all out, by the way. Gotta just amazing what they tried to do to make it so over the toply hard to ignore. I mean, but here we are in a modern culture where the Dharma's at the age of decline, according to pretty much every different Buddhist tradition in some way, right? It's just, and why is that? It's because there's so much speed and materialism, and there's so much to do, and such a feeling of do and speed that is, culturally, socially obligated. And then these things, I mean, don't, who knows, right? I don't know. They're great. They're not. There are many things, but it's complex, right? And so I'm wondering, for us, like, I'm trying to populate the sense perceptions as deities or bodhisattvas. And that if we really take that look and say, wow, they really are reliable. They are a refuge. They're always shining as in the present moment. They're always as they are, right? They're sanity because they're not an opinion. The Buddhists went very far to even say, even if your sense perceptions are not 20/20, or if they're slightly, that none of that matters, because it's like the medium is clear in itself. In other words, it doesn't require evaluation to give luminosity or appearance that's reliable, because it's always happening now, and it's not the conceptual sixth consciousness. It's not an opinion. It's not, right? It's sanity in the sense that it binds us to the phenomenal world. It's also the gateway of wisdom and compassion through the senses. So when we practice this way throughout the day, when we flash this way, we're creating this culture. I think a lot of it might be easy to think that a lot of the magic of Tibetan culture was what almost looks like mental gymnastics, like the reframing and all this stuff but it's not actually. I think that's a very like DBT, CBT level Western kind of way of looking at it. It's much deeper than that. I think it's actually that there was a living world. Right? They were part of a living world. And so they were getting communication from their cultural orientation. And it wasn't just a process. It was actually the skillful means of I'll give an example. When we think about in the second gesture that I've shown to some of you about impermanence, right? Symbolizing the teachings of the Four Reminders and whatnot. One of the things I've noticed walking in my neighborhood, because here I'm working at home, screen with students, doing retreats with videos. So I need to get out of my room. I need to get into nature. I need to like move and have exercise. And I get out, and I've noticed that like the trees, moving by me, or am I moving? They're moving. I don't know. Anyway, something's happening that is this, right? And so as you can see how you begin to write the story of your living sadhana through the auspicious coincidence of your life and the conditions you're in, you actually start to see the deity of impermanence when anything moves. And you know why the Four Reminders were the #1 technique for over 1,000 years. And yet again, #1 in the nation of Tibet was the Four Reminders for developing motivation and inspiration, because they just cut right to the bone. They cut to death. They're like, okay, whatever you think, everyone you've ever known has died. What are you going to do? It's like, sure, we can get philosophical. You can tell me about your ideologies and your preferences and your favorite new clothes, but like, shing, what are you going to do? And so how do you make this real for yourself? So it's, to me, I guess I'm saying two things that go in concert. Schedule some retreat time in the next week, or practice time. I love how, Shirley, you said, oh, I don't like the specific time. Because I feel the same way. I benefited so much from living at a Dharma center where they just had the sittings, and I was like, and I would just like lazily slump in, sit down, and man, that helped so much. That's why I told you to go there. Sorry, shit hit the fan when you arrived, but it was still, wasn't that helpful when you were there with that schedule, or did that not help you? What was your experience?
I won't get into a lot of it. I loved having morning and evening practice.
Right.
I wish that the commitment had been center-wide.
Oh, you just like set off one of my old cliches. Like, it's like activate code 14. I've seen this. I haven't seen this one in over 5 years, no, 10 years. So when I lived at the centers, I lived there at the time when we were practicing 5 hours a day, and you had to. And it was awesome. Anyway, that slowly was eroded as newer directors would come in with more progressive ideas about upping revenue and making sustainable. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then suddenly the one thing that just kept shrinking was the practice time. And then it was like the commitment to practice, then the even time for practice. And then it was just like, yeah. So you have no idea how much that was like, oh, it's so deep in me. I haven't felt that in so long. The angst of, I used to be so angsty in community meetings and be like, this is why we're here. This is the first Kagyu shrine room in North America. Oh gosh, I must have been hard to listen to. But the point is I really believed it. But you know what I did? I was so upset that I made my friends get up, They obviously could have blown me off, but I would get up and they joined me at 5 a.m. and we would sit, go to breakfast and come back for the 1 hour. And we just like, I was like, damn it, I'm getting my hours. That was very, if I saw the changing of the light, at night and saw that as, oh my God, the deity of the night is coming. We must offer, the tea to it, or we must practice to honor this transition because this is the death of my life. This is the end phase of my day life, right? I want to prepare for that. That's a kind of culture of practice that, again, sounds good, right? Oh, it's morning. No matter what, when I get up, unless I'm running late and, okay, fine. But mostly, no matter what, you just sit first. Right? And you just do, because that's how you honor the sun in the morning, in the day, and yourself. And you just don't let it get sneaky. The first thing you do is you just do it. And you don't want to. That's why when I've been talking about the gestures to people as a mode of practice, and I don't, it's up to you what you do. I really don't care, but there's many ways. But that method, the one thing I've said about it is I've surprised myself. I was like, you have to do it in the morning. It's like, oh, there's an edge? What do you mean you have to do it in the morning? You can do it the rest of the day too, but you gotta start with it. And it's like, oh, it's like nobody likes, don't tell me what to do. but it's funny because I find out of maybe my own conditioning and my own lack of organization or the way I'm wired, I've just realized like it has to be kind of like that or it won't happen. But that's formal practice. Then there's the entire day. And here's the paradox, which that no matter what, everything is the practice session, every moment. So it's both. And I think the more we hold that view over time, the more it becomes true, as Janet was saying. It's like, because we say so, and really you could say more deeply, I think it's the same thing you meant, but because we feel so, then it starts to be so. And it's like it arises from within you. But that takes time. So I guess I am just a walking contradiction. See the circle? You remember, it's the paradox of Suzuki Roshi. If it's not a paradox, it's probably not true. So just like this, the Lojong slogans contradict themselves around the way. It's a circle. Yes, Shirley.
I think what you're saying makes so much sense to me, but I think where I've fallen into the trap is finding ways to say, but all of my day is a practice, or I'll take these 5 minutes to do breathing practice and sink into my body in short sessions many times. Well, but I think I also need the regular sit down and practice. And I think that's kind of where, as you're talking about the circle, that's kind of, I've been And I can make all the excuses in the world. I mean, there's a virus, there's nobody to talk to, there's just the Zoom, there's just this and that. But I hear what you're saying about the whole circle.
I was just going to say that I feel like that what you just said, Shirley, about, like, it seemed to me like you really knew, like, you know something about yourself and your experience. And I think that's what I was kind of wanting to get at in my vow, is like that I know something about my experience. And it also doesn't mean I can't take from the teachings. And like I was also thinking about what you said, Nick, about 7 steps towards practice. And then, like, even if you get there or not, it's sort of, you've taken those steps. And how also just kind of thinking about spiritual materialism as like, yeah, awareness is always present. There's this potential for practice, or we're always inseparable from awareness to every experience we have. And something about, like, getting serious in a moment, like 7 steps unto death or whatever. It's like, that's really important, because, and I take that a step further in my head often, where I'm like, that's important because everything is connected with awareness unto death. Of course you would include it all, no matter how challenging, all sentient beings, emaho. But I love that 7 steps, and it made me think of the great Khenpo, Tsultrim Gyatso Rinpoche, saying the relative truth, like summarizing the relative truth as like, just treat it like, treat your practice as if you had a wish fulfilling jewel. But it's like, which is like the 7 steps, but it's also like, wow, this is a serious thing. It's like, but it's so serious that I have to have a wish fulfilling jewel to even, like, approach this.
I love that. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you, David. It's so cool. I want to, in our remaining time, invite us into doing another cycle of those first 3 gestures, and then just discussing a little more, so it'll be a little shorter. The reason I want to do this is because it sort of illustrates or models the slices of iterative relational moments, or another way of putting that, the accruing of momentum. Accruing of momentum, I'm sure there's a Tibetan word, well, there's many, but it's not it's not quite steady, but it's like that. It's the idea of the steadiness, but more the momentum of accruing realizational experience. That is why in the longer retreats, you would even sleep sitting up kind of things, to lighten your sleep so you didn't lose momentum the next day. And, it's just very, I don't know if that, the joke is like, I don't know if that's necessary, or because obviously other people have done it without doing that. But then again, it's fine if you do that too, right? Maybe it's neither, it's both and. But that said, this notion of seeing how we iterate and how we build on what we felt and move forward from that. And I think in doing it, it'll become clear what I'm hoping to illustrate. And why we practice circularly, at least that's my guidance for you in this song. You can practice however you want, but the circular notion is the idea that the whole path is available immediately, always, all at once. And really, we're just doing this circular thing. And I really, really deeply think that's important for us as Westerners, especially because we're so conditioned in a linear way. We have to counteract some of that in this way. So That's what I've seen. But all right, so we'll begin with this, the first gesture, sense of turning of the wheel, and then you lift your hands up and down on your thighs. This is like the touching the earth mudra, but you're the earth. Your body is a reminder, and it's a reminder that we're part of the earth. And it's a way of saying, I'm just going to be, but because we like to be kind with, steps into it, and not sometimes I personally don't always do any steps with it. Sometimes I'll do, but I think it's kind to do it sometimes just to see where you're at and have the diagnostic tools to know their different practices, know how to use them when you need them. So I'm very big on that. Know what you need and use it. So we'll just begin with the 10 fingers meditation. This is a great potent way of doing shamatha. Technically, if you do this twice, really staying with each finger, you're at the third stage of shamatha, which is all you actually need of shamatha. Some people argue more, maybe a little more, but nah, you're pretty good if you can get the third. So let's try this. Let's just see if we can do 10 fingers completely present. Then we'll move into the senses, and then we'll explore it further. Nice full breath in and out. Then natural breath comes in, pressing gently with love with the pinky. And then as we breathe out, really letting the breath go all the way out, and do not breathe in consciously with your mind. Let your body breathe in when it needs to. Don't ride the breath. It's beautiful. It's like sitting at the beach watching ocean waves and really just like trusting that they can do their thing. I don't need to micromanage the waves at the ocean, and the same with my breath. It can just do its thing. It's beautiful. And then we move into the 5 senses. Very gently, briefly, sight. Just noticing shapes, colors. Sound. What can I hear right now? Smell. No matter how subtle. Taste. The mouth always has a taste, actually. It can be a very mild thing. And then touch, sensation of body, temperature, weight. And now leaving mindfulness, not behind per se, but emphasizing awareness by stacking. Mindfulness arrives at its object by focusing on one thing at a time. It's like linear sequential tasking, but awareness is actually the totality, and it is inclusion. It's the opposite of conceptual mind, which is exclusion. When you use the conceptual mind, you look at something and you label it as opposed to everything else, you label it blank. So bicycle, you say bicycle. You don't say everything else first. You just say bicycle and exclude everything else. With awareness, it's quite the opposite. You don't label anything, or if you're labeling, you just see that as part of a totality. This is why relaxation is so affiliated or associated with initially learning how to do this kind of vipassana or insight awareness practice. But I like to say surrender or giving up, because relax, I don't know. It's like when someone says that, I tighten up. I don't know. Very contrary. I don't know about you. So how about surrender? Then you can fight. I don't know. How about fight? Damn it, struggle. Then maybe you do it. I don't know. So we just let go into however we can just feel the body, and then stacking, feeling the body, durationally extending that along with the tongue and taste. Feeling the body along with tongue, taste, and smell in the nose. Feeling the body, tongue, taste, smell, nose, and sound. Feeling the body, tongue, taste, smell, nose, sound, ears. Feeling the body, tongue, taste, smell, nose, ears, sound, and sight. Touch, taste, smell, sound, sight. Relax into the indeterminacy, not measuring, and then the sixth consciousness can dawn unexaggerated and unrepressed. We do not need to alter any thinking or change it or stop it in any way, but marvelously we can allow it, like weather in the sky, to do whatever it likes. We identify with the sky of the senses. The thoughts are part of that, but they're not exaggerated or denied. Feeling a sense of spaciousness, inclusion. Everything is represented by itself. Now we are in the land of the sky-like mind of just being. We have a reference point for when thoughts become dominant. We'll notice the eclipse, the clouds of the sky getting bigger. When we notice that, really feel that. It's a beautiful thing to become familiar with. Because if you can see that contraction of the sixth consciousness, or the awareness going to the sixth consciousness more accurately, or congealing there, there's a kind of blackout that happens, but it doesn't have to go all the way. We can see it and then just relax. This is the levels of Shenpa. This is the subtlest level of Shenpa. We can talk about those levels again another time if it's helpful, but for now, just knowing that when you unclench, this is the sub gesture of the first gesture, just unclenching your fist again and again. Unclench. Oh, unclench. Unclench. Undo. It's the undo button. Now, this is just a diagnostic, right? We have the senses as a diagnostic too, and then we can just relax and be, just be. This is the part we were talking about initially of utter honesty. This is really, it's full circle. It's the first and maybe it's the end, but it's beautiful because however exactly you feel and whatever exactly is coming up in your particular moment of being you right now is exactly what you need. Exactly. It is the Dharma. It is perfect. Let it be as it is. Learn from it. See it. Not altering our experience, not trying to get anywhere. Just exactly how we are, exactly without any altering. This nakedness is so important. It's the foundation of everything. It's reality too. And then in this space of non-altering, we notice the coming and going of thoughts, feelings, emotions, moments related to other moments. The gesture of moving the hand, looking where it was, quality of dissolving. And it's showing the passing of time from the relative sense, this sense of life is continuing all the time to dissolve forward. You can't go back. And out of this space, this poignancy that we have a body and mind right now that we can work with and understand, emergent from the universe, and we can look directly at the nature of the universe because our mind and body are emergent from it. So we have this beautiful canvas or possibility of subjective experience to understand what is true. And the third gesture is sort of starts with this sense of container of like, what have I already vowed to? I've taken the bodhisattva vow, all that is good. And remembering what's been important to me so far. What have I already committed to? And then once we connect with that, we bring the hands together. What am I encountering right now in my life? What are the conditions of this moment? What's kind of going on right now for me? And then leaning the fingers forward, leaning in, symbolizing kind of an arrow or the growing edge. What is my growing edge right now? What is my challenge? What is it that what would be brave on my path right now? You see, I did that. I couldn't help it, but that's real. Like when I went, sometimes that happens. Do you know what I mean? Like where you go, oh, you just go, oh, right? When we feel that, then you can bow. You don't have to bow because I bow, but you get that. When you And if you do want to share again now as we close our session, what comes up now as you do it? And as you can see, it's like, is it a circle, but it's also maybe it's a spiral where we keep going deeper. I don't know, right? It's me. I'm back here again, but I'm not in the same place. It's going deeper. It's not going up. I don't know. Where are you going? Sideways. So if you'd like to share anything in this spirit of like what has now come up for you as after all we've explored and at the end of our session, anything you'd like to share. Oh wait, you're muted, Alan. Hold on. Your phone doesn't say it is. I can't. No, wait. Let me merge you with audio. Let's see if that works. Can you? Oh. No. Darn it. We can't hear you. If you want to call in again, you can. You're intrepid with technical challenges. You could type in the chat if you want, just to share, because that'll at least we'll get to feel you. And we feel you anyway, but we can't hear you. But we'll get to know what you're.
It's what came to me as was discipline within the naturalness of genuineness.
When you said that, and as I'm feeling you now, I feel this buoying of my life force. Like, oh, thank goodness you're out there. And that you said that, and now I second you. It's so cool how that happened, right? It's like, it's so interesting to radiate that out. Thank you. Yeah.
Emanating from that nakedness, I just became aware of this really raw, beautiful tenderness. Of impermanence, but not in a graspy way, yeah, of course. And it's that realness.
Thank you, Janet. I want to give a voice to Alan. I will lend my voice to you and read out what you shared. There is something arising from me about not reacting to the squirrely, nervous, anxious ego that is afraid of practice, needs territory to defend, is putting up a front, and just be. Eh, Maho. Thank you, Alan. Beautiful. Yeah. What else? ¿Qué más?
There's a desire to really listen to the phenomena that's arising in my life without trying to control it, or yeah, just make it be the thing that I want it to be. Yeah, just letting reality be itself. It doesn't need me to interact with it, really.
When Alan added, also that same ego wants me to befriend it, to love it, to help it know it is okay. Yeah. Oh. That is so good, right? That's actually the next gesture, the cradle of loving kindness. You know, place that mind of fearfulness in the cradle of loving kindness. Suckle it with the milk of eternal doubtlessness. Fan it with the fan of, in the cool shade of fearlessness. Fan it with joy and happiness. And isn't that interesting? Ooh, yeah. Some good stuff there. It kind of is a total flipperoo on the baby can settle into mama's breast. Beautiful. What else?
So I've just been practicing with that discomfort of noticing when I'm like engaged or pulling back, and just noticing when I'm aware of it and are able to open it all to the discomfort, the different kinds of pains that come up in my body. You know, one of them, like almost a shielding and a painful shielding around my heart. And I don't know if this is appropriate, but Tina, I appreciated what you were sharing, because it also helped me to realize just how much energy I give to both that engagement, or probably also pulling back from engagement. So that was helpful. Thank you.
It's interesting to look at my senses as, I think you said bodhisattvas, or as, not as Buddhas, but as bodhisattvas, or Buddhas. Anyhow, that's interesting because it really personalizes for me that yes, that these are true, genuine teachers or gateways. It makes it more immediate for me to think that that's a possibility.
Mm.
But Nick, it's not the same as visualizing deities, like, or is it?
You sneaky Steven, you have a way of like dropping in the most deep, heavy questions at the end of sessions. Like you're like, it's like for years now you've done this to me, and I love it. I wish it's like almost like clockwork. I'm like, no, that's too deep. I want to talk about that. We don't have time. Ah. I mean, the short answer, let's come back to that sometime, okay? Don't forget that, please. But the short answer to that is the course level of visualization. Sometimes visualization is also called sensualization, right? It could be all the things, and it could be feeling. At an initial level, a lot of that's happening with the sixth consciousness, with imagination. But as it progresses, it actually can become kind of the pure perception starts to become inseparable from direct perception. So it's kind of it's a very deep thing you just brought up, but it's kind of like yes and both, depends. But yeah, kind of like that actually. It's more like that, I think, than not. Let's put it that way. The joke is that sometimes people think, oh, visualization, that's when you make stuff up. The joke is that the reality is actually sometimes we're always visualizing in some way, right? We're always projecting. So what's the real, what's an aligned, what's the creative power, displacive power of mind? That's Sol in Tibetan. And the displacive power is actually reality. So Asanga said, your unreal imagination exists. Ooh, that's quantum very fast. So we'll come back to that, but that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Shirley, do you have anything you'd like to share with us in the spirit of this, or anything before we close?
I kind of surprised myself by being honestly where I am. The balls dropped.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That is one of the most beautiful expressions of congruency, is that for me, it feels that way as well. Like it's a surprise, almost like, oh, and then it's like, yeah, that's the real stuff. Maho, thank you. We did it. Great gathering. See you before next month, but for the monthly gathering, thank you, Sangha, for being so awesome. Let's, on the Sunday, we have a retreat on relative bodhicitta and stacking, these same stacking techniques in relationship to Tonglen. There's a particular way of doing it that has been really helpful and neat. So we'll be doing that on Sunday. But thank you all for being you and enriching each of our little worlds, shining back, and like this, you know, little each node shining light into each other node and increasing the light, getting all those cool rainbows and weird angles, learning from each other's angles. That said, let's dedicate the merit. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death from the ocean of samsara. May I free all beings by the confidence of the golden sun of the great east. May the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. And optional forest and tree wave, jazz hands, salute, mirroring, swaying tree forest, mirroring salute, mudra. All right. Bye, good night, or good afternoon, whatever.